Hi, Phil Chicho here, founder of Success Thinking, creator of Think Yourself to Success, where we help people just like you bridge the gap between what you know and what you do. And I wanted to talk today about how behaviors are driven unconsciously, right? So for instance, much of your behavior is unconscious. You don't even know you're doing what you're doing. And this is important because some of those things that you're doing unconsciously serve you, but many of them probably don't. I was with a group of executives the other day, and we were talking about this topic of unconscious behaviors and how it can affect your relationships at work and at home. And so we talked about what creates that. Like, think about this for a moment. If I was to maybe watch you and hover over you for 3 or 4 days, maybe record some of your behaviors. Much of the time after we were watching that video recording together, you'd find that there's some things that you do unconsciously that are serving you, but there are a lot of things that you're doing that are not serving you and probably not serving your relationships. And we were talking about this topic, and one of the women in the class said to me, "Well, Phil, what do you mean by this? How do I determine, what is creating unconscious behaviors for me that might be affecting my relationships?" And I said to her, well, there are lots of things, but we talked about one, and I'm going to share this with you here now. I talked about labels and how labels that we have for other people or other places or things or companies or organizations drive our behavior unconsciously. And so if we take the concept of labels and we apply it to people, all of you have labeled everybody you know. So you all have already got labels for the people that you know. As a matter of fact, we create labels very, very quickly. Oftentimes we buy labels from other people. And here's the thing about labels. Once we have a label for somebody, the brain tries to prove that that label that we have is true. So it tries to amplify that label for us. In other words, think about this. If you know somebody who's annoying and that's your label for them, even if they're not being annoying, their voice just makes you cringe, right? Even if they didn't say something annoying, because you have a label for them, their voice gets amplified as annoying to you. In other words, once we have a label for somebody, your brain is trying to prove it to you. It works like Google, only like 1,000,000 times faster. Google, the way that Google works is if you type something into your Google search engine, right, into your window there on your laptop or whatever, what Google will do, let's just say that I typed in that Massachusetts, which is where I live, is the best state in the country to live in. What Google will do in a millisecond will filter out everything bad about Massachusetts and amplify or bring to the forefront all the good stuff here in Massachusetts. And so it's looking for what I'm looking for and filtering out everything else. I could then change what I typed in there and say that Massachusetts is the worst place in the country to live. And what will Google do? It'll filter out all that good stuff and bring to the forefront or amplify all the things that are negative about living in Massachusetts. And so the point that I'm trying to make here is that your labels work the same way. If you've labeled somebody as positive, right, then their positivity gets amplified to you. If you've labeled them as negative, then anything that they do becomes amplified in a negative way for you. And so we go back to the annoying person. All they have to do is speak up or walk into a room and you're annoyed by them, even if they're not being annoying, because what happens is that once we have a label for somebody, it's very difficult to look past it, even though they may not be acting or behaving based on that label. And so let's just say that you have somebody in your life that, of course, we've defined as annoying. Just because they show up, your body unconsciously will behave or show them that you feel that they're annoying. They'll walk into a room and you might like roll your eyes or do one of these, and you don't even realize that you're behaving this way. And then they see that, and based on the law of cause and effect, action, reaction, because you rolled your eyes or you sat back and you sighed or you did one of these or you showed them that you were annoyed, then they react to that, and that reaction is going to annoy you. And so think about this. If you're unconsciously behaving based on labels and you've got negative labels for people, you're actually not serving that relationship, right? Like if you labeled your children as lazy, when you go home, everything that they did is amplified to you as being lazy. So for instance, if this bottle should be here and it's just over here, just a couple of inches, when you walk in, you're like, oh, these lazy kids, and it's amplified to you. It really isn't that big of a deal, but because you need to prove to yourself that they're lazy, you need to find proof of that, you make this slight movement a big issue for you, and they become lazy. And so you get to prove to yourself that which you believe about a label about the person is true. So I want you to be thinking about what are your labels for others and how might you be behaving unconsciously, and maybe bring that to your attention and say, okay, how do I behave when this person's around? The other thing about labels is not only is it hard to look past, oftentimes labels are passed on to us by other people. Like you might be about to be introduced to somebody, and before you're introduced to that person, somebody says, hey, this person's really fun, or this person's really a positive person or productive, or they might say this person's really negative, or this person's really annoying, or this person's a real jerk, or watch out and watch your back. And all of those labels, because we have nothing to gauge them against or judge them by, right? We own them. And then our brain tries to search for that for us, right? So if the person is somebody that we're supposed to stay away from because they're a troublemaker, and that's the label that was passed on to us, we'll unconsciously behave in such a way where we stay away from that person, not realizing that that may not even be a true label. Maybe that person has changed, or maybe that was just not even true about that person. And suddenly we find ourselves not, reaching out to that person or saying hello or avoiding them. And here's a relationship that we could have probably had with somebody that could have been positive, but we're in avoidance mode because unconsciously we're avoiding them based on the fact that we were given a label and we bought that label. So I want you to be thinking about the labels that you have for other people, maybe whether you've actually created those labels yourself, or maybe they were passed on to you. And if those labels are negative and aren't serving your relationship, I want to challenge you to alter the label, change the label, and see what happens. If you change the label that you have for another human being from one that is a negative label to one that is a positive label, then you'll show up based on that label. And that action, reaction, or law of cause and effect will have them change their behavior towards you. And over time, you'll see that relationship begin to improve and ultimately will serve you. I hope that this video served you. If you want any more information about the things that I teach and some of these topics, just go to my website at philciccio.com. If you're not there already, if you are there, feel free to scroll through many of the videos I have here and some of the content. And I hope to be able to meet you someday in person or work with you at some point. Thanks so much. Have a great day.